Okay, so we are going to start. Welcome to the University of Manchester's second virtual open week. So I hope you're all well, wherever you are in the world and whatever time it may be for you all. It's a very sunny morning here in the UK, and we're really looking forward to today's session, where hopefully we can provide you with a fantastic in-depth insight into our new Masters of Leadership for Development, which is delivered jointly and in partnership with the University of Melbourne. So before we begin, and I have kind of mentioned this before, but please take a moment to kind of look at this question and think about it from your own perspective and background. So hopefully when today's session comes to an end, you will see just how this Masters of Leadership for Development can help you adopt a new approach to leadership and reach your goals. So a few housekeeping rules before I go into some introductions. This session is going to be recorded, so I'll send this around to you once we finish today, so you can listen back to anything that you may have missed. Please ask questions and submit your thoughts and comments into the chat function. We would, like I've said before, like to make this session really interactive, and your input is going to make that happen. So please do submit any questions that you may have. So by way of introduction, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Daisy James. I'm based here in Manchester in the UK, and I am the course advisor for our Masters of Leadership for Development. So my role essentially is to support you during kind of the decision-making stages and the application stage of the recruitment journey. So my contact details are going to be at the bottom of each slide and at the end of the slide presentation. Please do get in touch with me if you've got any questions or would like me to walk you through the admissions process. That's what I'm here for, so that you can make the informed decision about taking the next steps. I'm joined by two of our course directors, so Dr. Jaco Renking, who is our Manchester course director, and Dr. Violetta Schubert, who is based in Melbourne. So I'm really lucky and fortunate to be joined by both of these wonderful people who are going to give you an insight into the course and walk you through this presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to them now to kind of walk you through this slide deck.
Hi, everyone. Jaco, would you like to introduce us?
Yeah, just want to say hello from our side. It's great. We always pumping with enthusiasm and excitement to get in touch with people that would be interested in looking into the possibility of doing a master's around leadership, particularly if you want to join us in the development sector and empower yourself in this kind of way. Hopefully through the day we'll give you plenty of food for thought and ideas to think through and mold through as you make this very, very important decision. For most people, a master's degree is the last time that you're really going to study an informal, a big university program. So it is a big decision, and we would like to serve you in the best possible way in terms of informing your decision, whether it's going to be this master's, whether it's right for you, or whether we can help you choose something that might be slightly different. Vicky, over to you.
Well, we wanted to have this as an informative but relaxed style to give you a sense of where we would approaching our thinking about leadership and where we would like to explore ideas about leadership. So I've got this quote, very recent quote from the Secretary General of the United Nations saying, "We are in trouble and we need to change course." And I speak with a lot of different development actors. It's not only doing research, but in various INGOs and government and so forth. And very recently, just last week, a similar kind of thing was saying, if one thing that the COVID situation, this pandemic has impelled is, that you can't do what we've already done. You can't assume that we can take for granted of going in any shape or form backwards. But the problem is that there are enormous structural and, might I add, philosophical and ideational issues that this is the time for us to step back and really think about leadership. So, Jaco.
Yeah, thanks, Thanks, Vicky. I've been in a couple of settings where people have been asking us, so what is unique about leadership in the development sector, if anything? And that's a valid question, because it sits at the heart of whether you would want to do this course for your masters or not. And I've given this a bit of thought, and about 2 years ago was an interesting pivotal moment when we were visited by the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, the 37th, Helen Clark. She served as Prime Minister for double terms, more than one term, and has been a very successful woman Prime Minister in New Zealand. And what was interesting is just after her tenure had come to an end in New Zealand, she moved over to become an administrator, the executive leader of the UNDP. And in this kind of setting, she kind of led from a different perspective. And in the time when we were together, I managed to get an opportunity to ask her a question. And I asked her, so Helen, could you reflect for a moment on what is so the same or so different between leading in an executive role as Prime Minister and leading the administrative team or the whole team at UNDP? Is it just the same type of leadership required, or is it different? And the answer was quite striking in her privileged position of having led in these both these contexts. And she explained how being a Prime Minister in some ways are quite a bit easier than being the head of a UN agency such as UNDP. And she explained that the nature of leadership in government and as leader of the reigning political party is a kind of executive leadership, one where decisions are made at an executive level based on democratic principles, and orders are given and people follow those orders, and resources are released in order to enable that. But when she took over the role in UNDP, she could no longer give orders to presidents and leaders of businesses and organizations around the world. It had to be much more of an advocacy, ideas leadership, team leadership that she exercised. And in that sense, getting people to buy into ideas, reaching consensus, collaborating without power differences was quite profound. And she explained how difficult that was, but how rewarding when you actually get it right. And that just gave you an idea of the differences between leadership potentially in a normal setting, or in a setting in business, in a setting in government, or a setting then within the development sector. And that prompts us for changing and shaping our educational offering, particularly to equip such leadership competencies and skills. And just for the sake of stimulating you a little bit today, I thought I'd share with you 5 elements that we typically consider to be distinctives of leadership in the development sector. It doesn't mean it's unique, but it's somehow distinctive, that have the distinctive implications for leadership development, and hence the reason for this program. So in one sense, one element is problem. So in development, we typically deal with sticky problems. These are wicked problems of poverty and inequality and disasters and so on and so forth. And these kind of problems require quite unique, complex solutions that are quite distinctive to what we do. And balancing the competing interests are very much at the heart of how leadership works. It would be, like climate change, for example, or COVID-19. There's this one pull in the direction of economic growth that would want us to reduce lockdowns and restrictive measures. And the other end, it's life and the welfare of our planet and our people that pulls in another direction. And in development, leadership requires you to make those hard decisions. In terms of power is central to leadership, and power relationships are often translated into control mechanisms. And in development, those mechanisms can be either conducive or otherwise for development, and therefore understanding power, capable of interpreting power and engaging with power is so important, and hence need to be addressed very specifically at a master's. Stakeholder arrangements are quite distinctive. We know the complex arrangements and how you have to balance international donors and governments and businesses, private sector, NGO sector, and the beneficiaries themselves, if that's part of your arrangement, and to balance all these interests, typically sometimes competing beneficiary interests, government interests, donor interests, is really an area that we need to be empowered and understand really well. There's issues around values. We know we can't lead by delegated power in the development sector very often, but we have to lead through common ground. Common values are typically one of the only go-to ways we can do that. So a program like this, a course like this, would require us to make sure we know our values and that we can operate from a value-based perspective. It includes things like reflexivity and so on. And finally, this idea of globalization, where we see the shift from a rather narrow view on international development to a rather wider acknowledgement of a global development paradigm, and we will delve into that quite a bit into this course, and we need to be able to engage both locally and globally at the same time in order to lead effective development impact. So those are just a few tasters, and of course this course is about going into those and then developing the skills and competencies to deal with that. But perhaps we can introduce you next to the team that you will be engaging with. Vicky, can you get us started on that?
Yeah. So we've got a wonderful team. I'm sorry, everyone. I think you're going to be seeing glaring glasses for a moment. We've got a wonderful team. If you notice that right now, each of our, we call them in Australian subjects, course units. You see, it's a multicultural team. Dr. Shirley Jenner, Dr. Jaco Rankin, myself, Dr. Leslie Pruitt, Dr. Rory Stanton, Dr. Natalie Cunningham, and Dr. Kelechi Akuma. Myself, as well as Dr. Leslie Pruitt from the Melbourne University team, and we'll give you an overview of the different subjects that we are doing for each of us, but I am teaching the contemporary leadership, which is one of the second foundational subject. Kelechi is doing leading development, as you can see, and we can go through each of those units or subjects, depending on which zone of the world that you are joining us from, and we'll discuss that in a.
Yep. Thanks, Vicky. As you can see, guys, this is quite a collection of faculty that will be serving you on this program should you join us. But we also have to emphasize that the benefit of the joint offering comes from these core colleagues being embedded within larger departments and institutions. And in the Global Development Institute, for example, we've got more than 50 academics and researchers, and with Vicky and the Melbourne team, they've got also a large amount of world-renowned people doing some excellent work in development, and this program taps into that. But even more than that is we are deeply connected with the development sector and key players and organizations around the world. So this team is merely the core of bringing together a network of experience and competencies and skills and perspectives from literally around the world. And that's the benefit that comes to you as a result of the joint academic offering that we are bringing over here. But
sorry, Jaco, if I could add, guys, what we do is there's incredible depth. It's not about all of us having a particular track, giving it from both universities, and the strength of all of us as a team, and the large, as Jaco said, we come from very well established universities and wonderful connections as well across different sectors, but we each have our unique contribution. For example, I'm a gender person. I'm an anthropologist by background. I'm all about reflexivity, culture, rethinking things in a critical manner. Many of our colleagues are similar. We've got Natalie, who has got enormous experience in leadership training and skills. Likewise, everyone has their unique component. So you're not just getting the reason that we wanted to come together and actually pull the different kinds of research and experiences and perspectives. And it's really exciting for us. We've thoroughly enjoyed exploring ways that we could make this program work for you. So we love to get to know you more.
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. It's been great to have these multiple perspectives, and that's going to be quite enriching.
Yeah.
But we obviously know that you guys have questions about how does this program actually plays out. So I'm going to quickly just talk us through this, and then we can just tap into the different subjects briefly so that you get an idea of what it's all about. But firstly, this program, this course is fully 100% online, and it's designed to fit in with your lifestyle and circumstances as someone that is working and employed and studying part-time. So it is demanding, but it is fit for a workload of approximately 15 hours a week that you can dedicate to your studies alongside your work and family life and so on. So it extends over 24 months, 2 years exactly, and it's delivered together as we've seen. The first entry date for the program is in March 2021, and there's ample time for you now to get in on that entry date, but we have multiple entries per year, so the next one will be in September 2021, and our fees are indicated for you there as well. And you can ask Daisy, consult her a bit later on about how this will work in terms of the logistic and financial arrangements and so forth. Next, as we move onwards, so what is it that you're really going to do over here? Vicky, can you give a short snapshot of the course aims?
Well, what we've put down here is the fundamentals. We know that most of you, especially if you're joining us, the eligibility is that we're looking for people who have at least 2 years experience in some way. You are, capable of analysis and critical thinking, but we want to bring a particularly analytic, critical analysis and looking at complexities of structures and power relationships. We explore the notions of relationships, but also, we want you to be able to network with development professionals and I'm sure that even as peers, your networks are very expansive, but it's that opportunity to perhaps look at different ways of going about things. We really focus on real life scenarios, global case studies. A lot of us have got real world, but also research experience. We want to bring things to building capacities, skills that you can make use of. We're particularly mindful of keeping it real in that sense, as well as critical. So the acquiring critical reasoning, analytic expertise, look, we don't assume that you don't have it, but I think everyone has needs that opportunity to enhance, to delve more deeply and perhaps learn from different framing of ideas and things. So that's where we look. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Violetta. I think what we can do now is just to quickly go through the course structure and the actual subjects, and then to see how it's all done. I just want to acknowledge that we see already one question from Abhinav in the chat, and we'll address that one shortly. So what we've tried to illustrate for you guys in this slide is to help you see how the course is put together. And as you've already learned from early on, we've got 6 subjects, and then there's a capstone component. It works so that you will do one subject with Manchester colleagues and then one subject with the Melbourne colleagues. Although there's a commonality between those all the time, you get the unique experience, and this alternates for 3 half-year terms. The order of these subjects are quite determined and structured in a way to help build towards a climax at the end. And we start off in Manchester with the subject contemporary development. As was indicated earlier, this is convened by Dr. Kelechi Ikuma. And the key idea behind this, this is convened by Rory Stanton, I beg your pardon for Rory. The key idea here is to help us build a solid foundation of what is going on in development today and where is it going next. The subject has got the structure of asking questions about the what, the who, the when, the why, the how much of development is going on. Yes, we dig a little bit into the history of development, but mostly to understand the theory and the practice of how development is unfolding and the shifts in development at this point. Vicky, can you say a quick word about contemporary leadership, the second subject?
Contemporary leadership is that opportunity to consider the way that leadership has been theorized, approached, the call for different ways of looking at leadership. This is especially the case, as we know, in the current context that we live in. But development has, in particular, as well as many other sectors, have been struggling with how to define leadership, how to approach leadership. For example, the mention of localization. Localizing leadership is not as simple as placing, greater emphasis on promoting people from bottom up or grassroots. There are different cultural elements, there are different value systems, issues of ethics. There's very fashionable ideas about connecting qualities and attributes of leadership to genetics and to behavior. So we explored the different ways that leadership is looked at and the different kinds of approaches to leadership, and where there's scope to rethink and move forward in different ways about leadership.
Thanks. If we move to the second half-year block, then leading development sits there. And this is if you like, bringing together what is going on in development, what is going on at the heart of leadership across, and developing us with that conceptual understanding of what is distinctive about leadership and development and what that means for us as leaders within the development sector. And it will give you the key notions around which we will connect the remaining subjects, of which the next is organizational development and change.
Yeah, I think it's really important to realize, like in a sector such as development, whether you're joining it or you're a part of it, we are pretty much working from an organizational context, and there's been enormous amounts of focus on leadership thinking, for example, from perspective of organizations rather than society and social perspectives. The link between organizations and change, and how to, our notion of influence towards transformation and what kind of transformation we are looking for has been debated in various ways from perspective of organization. So we look at that then.
Thanks. And then as you begin to see, we circle out towards, the largest scope. And then the fifth subject there is international management and leadership, where we really engage with this cross-cultural work management and strategic management. And we look particularly at interesting new innovations in terms of development models, including things like private INGO partnerships and these strategic configuration and arrangements that are new and innovative and necessary, corporate social responsibility and so on, in order to help you operate in this global international environment. Before we get to the final subject,
the leadership skills in action actually is, I'm very excited. I won't be personally teaching it, but I'm very excited about it. It's actually very much focusing on developing skills and working through simulations, various kinds of activities, and trying to hone in and pull together the different strands of what we have been studying across the different units. In other words, it's that preparatory point before you go into the capstone, and the capstone, well, what we call capstone, I don't know if it's called the same in the UK, that choice of doing either an individual dissertation or a group project, which Jaco, do you want to briefly mention?
Yeah, well, so the capstone is essentially, for some of you, you want to really dig deep into a particular issue that you came for to this master's, and you want to do a substantial piece of individual research. So there's a dissertation option for you. Of course, it will depend on your performance throughout the program in order to get access to that individual piece, but it's available to all. And then there's a group project which will be even more focused on practical problems and trying to solve those as a group through the lessons and the things that you've learned throughout the program. And this is for the duration of the last 6 months of your time with this program.
Is it okay to mention that? Oh.
Well, I think I'm just having an eye on time, Vicky, so maybe we can just share a little bit about this. What will this help you? How will this help you in terms of reaching your career goals and your personal goals? So perhaps I'll just single out one element from the slide we have in front of us. And in the latest DevEx report on talent within our industry, there's this top 5 hardest to find soft skills that's been proven through the extensive survey research that's been conducted in our industry. And guess what came up number 1? Of course, it was leadership, planning, strategy, and coaching. And those are the core skills that we are developing within this course that you are looking into today. And guys, with a formal qualification from reputable institutions around this hardest to find soft skill, which is not soft, you will definitely be noticed, and we can highly recommend that this would be a qualification that will get you noticed to advance you in your career, both laterally into the development sector, to different parts of the development sector, but definitely also give you upward mobility in terms of more responsible managerial and leadership roles.
Vicky, did you want to add something?
Oh, no, I wondered if we should respond to that question that we had in chat.
Of course, yeah. So what we'll do now is I'll just kind of wrap up, and then we can absolutely address the question that we've had. And I know, Jaco, you have gone back, but it might be worth kind of just talking between us all about kind of Abnahab's question. So before we take your questions, obviously just want to reiterate my role, and I am here to support you during kind of the next couple of months, whether you're looking to apply for our first enrolment in March or whether you are considering September 2021. My contact details are here. Now, one of the things I do is kind of have Zoom consultations on an individual basis with prospective students like yourself to really understand your background and kind of offer advice as to whether or not I believe this course is the right fit for you, and obviously answer the questions you have about the admissions process. So what I'm going to do is unshare my screen so we can address the question that's come through, if that's okay with you all.
Thank you. I already made a clumsy start in the chat to help address this question, but maybe just to reiterate that one and say, I mean, the question is really, really good. Will I be able to discuss with faculty and academics the ideas and how we can tackle some of the issues in your country and in your context? And I mean, the short answer is absolutely. Yes. You need to understand our hearts in all this. It's not to come with all the solutions, but to co-develop ideas and learn with you. You are master students. You are not, starting out in this field. You are experienced, and we want to learn together with you and try and solve problems together with you. And there are a range of ways in which you're going to be able to interact. I've mentioned a few there through regular webinars, at least 3 for each subject we have planned. You will engage with the small group context and with academics on a weekly basis through discussion board type activities, and then ad hoc type of meetings that you can arrange with your academic lead at that point in time, absolutely loads of opportunities for that, loads of smaller group activities, loads of larger group activities, loads of synchronous activities and asynchronous activities. Just being mindful that we are sitting in how many time zones around the world, and to limit the synchronous activities to what's feasible for everybody to participate in that.
I think if we can add to it, one of the benefits is being able to tap into both institutions and the kind of resources and events and activities. I mean, in both of our, schools and programs and faculties, we have enormous opportunities for you to engage and interact. So there's constantly seminars. And, we've become very proficient to having seminars and workshops, invitations coming across different time frames, and there's different kinds of recordings. And as students of both of our institutions, you have access to all the resources and other things from both institutions. So, we're really conscious that we'd like to foster your individual growth as well as a team.
Daisy, there's a question from a participant that's got a hand raised.
Oh yeah, so somebody who's got their hand raised, if you've got a question, would you like to kind of put it in the chat so we can answer that for you? And anyone else on the call, if you have got any questions, do submit them in the chat function. I just want to kind of talk to you a little bit about admissions and the process. Now, we have got an early application discount deadline in place. And I can't believe I'm saying that we're in November already, but we are. Now, the deadline for the early application discount, which is worth 10% of the overall tuition fee, is at the end of this month, so the 30th of November. Now, if you apply and you submit your application before that deadline, you will be eligible for that discount. So that's a little bit of an incentive for you. Now, another thing is we do have a wonderful scholarship in place as well. Now, if you want to discuss kind of your eligibility, how you apply to that, please do get in touch with me. I can kind of walk you through that process. Now, Melbourne, our wonderful admissions team in Melbourne, manage the admissions process. So once I've kind of had initial conversation with you, I will then kind of hand you over to the team in Melbourne, who will ultimately review your application and make that kind of final decision. But obviously we've got 3 weeks before that initial deadline. So I would strongly encourage you to kind of get in touch with me with any questions, or if you want to kind of arrange an individual Zoom chat with me, I'd be more than happy to support you. Now I'm just having a look. Do we have any more questions? I don't think we do. So we've obviously covered them in the wonderful presentation you guys have done. So I guess you
can always email us.
Exactly.
Oh, there it comes through now. Thanks.
Oh, brilliant.
Those are good questions. Yes. Thank you very much. So yes. I'll take the first one, Vicky, and then you can go for the next. But will the students be receiving graduate certificate from 2 universities? You will receive one certificate that is dual branded, University of Manchester, University of Melbourne. So it is a joint qualification, which therefore carry the prestige of having it from both universities simultaneously. It is not a dual qualification. In other words, you don't get separate degrees from Manchester and from Melbourne. Vicky?
Here it says, is the course 100% online, even the exams? Lucky for you, we don't have ideas of exams in sitting in. We didn't just go into the assessments, but yes, it is wholly online, and we do try to think of that balancing act between your other commitments as well as where you are around the globe. So the next one for you, Jakob.
Yeah, so the question there is, can I finish the degree in 1 year full time? And at the moment, we don't quite see how that would be possible for you to do that. in the first instance. So unfortunately, it is a part-time degree that's quite relying on colleagues being in their place of work. So a key underpinning idea in the program is that you bring knowledge and experience from your workplace into the program, and that you take knowledge and experience from the program into your workplace and observe the effects. So in that sense, at this point in time, there is flexibility in the program, in the course, but not to the point where you can do it all in 1 year. Unfortunately not. And then there's the question about alumni. Good news,
Yeah.
Vicky.
Yeah, well, definitely you're alumni of both. And you've got access as students from both universities, for example, you know, to the library access and to the other, all the resources. So you do have that advantage from both. Yeah,
absolutely. You're going to be an alumni from the Global Development Institute in Manchester, as well as from SPS in Melbourne. And that's going to be amazing for you to tap into both those networks. So a key thing we understand is you want to build networks, and you're going to be accessing, I mean, just one, I know from the Manchester side, we've got an alumni network of 8,000 plus people in the sector already. Like that's lovely.
So the, can I apply to the course if I have a nursing background? Absolutely. Very smart people, nursing background. It's just, but the eligibility, you know, we're having a conversation, it doesn't matter which field or profession you come from, but we do need to look at, you know, the kind of roles that you've played. Yeah, so we're very open. I mean, development is a very welcoming, inclusive, multidisciplinary space as it is. Yeah,
thanks. I think that's also a great question coming from diverse backgrounds. And so just to be clear, we are not specifying that you need to have a certain degree to come into the master's program. So as Nikki indicated, you're more than welcome. There are some requirements, and the two that stands out, and you can contact Daisy to discuss that in more detail, is of course you need to have a certain level of performance in your prior degree, just so that we can have that confidence in your ability to complete this course as well. And the second one is that we want you to have some supervisory, some experience that relate to leadership, whether it's leading a team, whether it's responsible for a small group or a big department or an entire organization or a startup of your own with several employees, any sort of a bit of significant 2 years or so experience of that night, supervisory leadership experience is what we bring into the program. So all your colleagues will have such experience, which is a bargain, because you can tap and learn from others who are not coming with no experience.
If there's time, we also have on the Q&A a question, and I'll read it out. Will there be job placements after we finish the program? That's a little bit complex. What I actually used to organize internships and job placements for quite a bit in the previous, in the other masters that I'm deputy director for. In this case, we are considering ways that we could provide mentoring for you to engage, but we don't have specific internships. So, so there are different ways that you will be able to interact with the sector, and we can facilitate that in various ways, but no specific job placements.
Yeah, I mean, of course, just to add to that, Vicky, I mean, the idea is that people are mostly employed in that join our program. They are working, so an internship is not exactly the next career step for colleagues. But
mentoring, leadership mentoring, and engagement and
coaching, mentoring, and linking, building your network is definitely part of this course.
Yeah, we have, again, should the experience be on nursing administration or working in a research centre or working in educational unit? All of them. The context of where you work is not an issue. I mean, we've got engineers, we've very successfully have had veterinarians and others joining development. So it's about the nature of, you know, if you don't have any kind of exposure to coordinating, to taking charge of a project or a group of people, or even if that group of people is very small, then it sort of might not be the best if you have no exposure. Am I being diplomatic, guys? So, okay.
There's another one, Vicky, that I've already looked through, and it's about your LinkedIn profile. Thanks. We haven't thought about LinkedIn profiles when we designed this program. So we might need to take it up with LinkedIn so that you can have a dual or a joint affiliation. With
absolutely, they should. I think they should. Well, become LinkedIn friends with us now. I'd welcome you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn, no problem.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. And I think that's all of the questions we've had come through. But it's been a really nice, rich discussion. So thanks so much.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you are coming from a background that you're not sure whether you'd be eligible, that's again what I'm here for. I'm here to kind of walk you through the kind of entry requirements and kind of discuss your background in more detail so that you feel kind of informed to take that next jump into hopefully submitting an application. Now, this session is recorded, so I'll send the recording round to you all, but please do get in touch with us, connect with us on LinkedIn, email us, Zoom, chat us, whatever that may be. We really want to kind of welcome you to this fantastic new Masters. Vicky, Jaco, thank you so much as always, and I will see you all soon.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good to have you around. Hope to see you in the near future. Bye now.
Bye.